right, everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm Ryan Cherowich, and I am here with Danny Porter. We're members of TAC Wargaming, and we're here to talk about the new Genestealer cults.
Hey, thank you. It's nice to be here at 7 a.m.
Yeah, 7 a.m. Yeah, it's 10 p.m. my time, so we're on opposite sides of the world. But yeah, Danny is an expert at Genestealer cults. He's one of like the 3 people in the world that have still been playing them all through 9th. And he just got the new book in his hands, and he's been excited to go through it.
Oh, mate, the book is amazing. Yeah, like I said to you, I've played 13 games in the last 3 days, just to get a bit of a grasp on how the book feels. So when I start doing more tournaments and I'm allowed to use it, I've got a bit of an edge on what it is, because there's a lot of changes that are really impactful to the army and kind of change the play style a little bit and how you can field the army as well. So yeah, it's a really good book and I'm really excited with it, to be honest with you.
And so, just to be clear, the new book now, you can't soup Tyranids in like you used to be able to and still keep all the rules in the new book, right? I mean, we'll go into it more in depth, but that's the idea now.
Yeah, no, if I think now souping Tyranids is a really bad idea. However, if you are Tyranids, souping Genestealers is a really good idea. So there is a flip side to it. If you shoot Brood Brothers, you can soup 25%, but the question really is, why would you? The book is so good that there's nothing that Brood Brothers would give you, or Tyranids, that would make the book stronger, I think.
Okay, well, let's dive in and talk about. So the reason we can't soup is crossfire, right? That's the
Yes.
special rule. So why don't you tell me a little bit of how that works?
All right, okay. So, I mean, we could spend 13, 14 hours in here and talk. I could give you a lecture on Crossfire because it's such an in-depth system that even though it seems really simple on the top of it, it's so in-depth because of how it's built into the Codex. Literally 90% of the Codex has the Crossfire keyword. And what it does is if you shoot a unit with a crossfire unit, you get a ambush marker, not ambush marker, a crossfire marker on the unit, and that gives anything else with a crossfire keyword +1 to hit. Right? Now, if you hit something on the other side of that unit with a crossfire keyword, you get an exposed marker, and that unit gets +1 to hit, wound, and no cover save. And this is absolutely phenomenal in the sense that the army is always suffered with output and efficiency. It's been amazing with utility all through 8th. However, the output was always limited, and the efficiency was never really there, except really skew builds, such as builds that I've been running in 9th. But what this does, it essentially allows your entire army to hit on 3s and get +1 to wound with a lot of strength 3 weapons. So you really start pumping out a lot of numbers that can, like, for example, 20 flamers now can really hurt a knight. 20 autoguns can really hurt a knight with this setup. So that's basically how it works. But in addition to that, there's a lot of utility. So there's a lot of stratagems that utilize crossfire to put minus no overwatch or fight last, or you can even use things like the Sanctus to turn off auras. Insta perils and things like that. So it's a very built-in system into the Codex. And the problem is if you shoot with Tyranids, you lose it straight out. And I don't think there's anything in the Tyranid Codex that is worth losing this system for, because, yeah, everything hitting on 3s, and you can, with the right cults, ignore any modifiers or all modifiers. So you can never not hit on 3s. And you get +1 to wound, and it's a really good system, to be honest with you.
So with the crossfire, not every unit has the crossfire keyword, right? It's only specific units.
Yeah. So anything that realistically cannot shoot is not with a weapon is not got crossfire. So things like a Primus, a Primus and Magus do not have crossfire. The Reductus Saboteur weirdly does not have crossfire. I can understand why thematically, but the brand new model not having it is a bit of a kick in the shins. There's a ways around this as we talk about relics later. I'll explain what can, but it's only like I think 4 characters or 5 characters that don't have it. Everything else in the book has crossfire.
Okay. And then even if it doesn't have crossfire, it still benefits for the +1 to hit, +1 to wound. If the
No, you absolutely have to have the crossfire keyword to benefit from that. However, the ones that can benefit from it are the ones that have the keyword. Aberrants and pure strains, because they have no shooty weapons, don't get
matter.
the keyword.
So, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
they don't matter exactly.
Okay, great. Okay. So then let's talk about what I think is the most important thing in every codex is the secondaries, the new secondaries.
Oh man, okay. All right. I'll be honest with you. I've played all 3 secondaries in the last 13 games as I've been playtesting, and I haven't managed. All right, apart from one, I haven't managed to get one above 10.
Okay.
So there's one. Let's just pull them up and let's just talk about them individually really quickly.
Okay.
So the first secondary, there's one called Sabotage Critical Location, and what this does is it replaces Octarius data. So already you're kind of questioning, why would I replace Octarius data when the army is so good at doing it? But what it does is it gives your opponent 2 markers, and they have to put those markers anywhere on the board, just more than 9 inches away from the battlefield edge and more than 9 inches away from another marker. And what I then have to do is I have to move an infantry or biker unit, or the saboteur for some reason, onto that marker within 3 inches and do an action at the start of my end of my movement phase, and it finishes at the end of my turn. And I can only start this action if there's no enemy units near the marker, and the earlier I score this, the more points I get. So I can get 9 points if I do it on one marker on turn 2, and 3 points if I do it on turn 5. And I can do it 2 actions at once. The problem with this is it gives so much agency to your opponent to put down these markers that they could just put it in a random location and just have buddies on top.
And they can just put both of them in their own deployment zone, right?
They can put them both in their own deployment zone, and you just sat there thinking, all right, great. So yeah, versus some armies, it's really good. Like Custodes, for example. If against Custodes, if they put it down, you can definitely get buddies on there. But if you're getting buddies on there, you're already kind of winning.
Yeah, so it's a win more in that case.
Yeah, whereas versus other armies, I guess if they misplace it, it's forcing them to put more units in a random location than they need to, so they can maybe, I don't know, lose a bit of board presence that way. But at the same time, is they can still shut down your secondary, and it's like, okay, well, maybe towards the turn 5, I'll score 3 points per secondary, or I might get 10-4, but by then you're not scoring more than 10. So I think it's poorly done. I think if they'd have said you can't be within the deployment zone, then maybe it might be okay, but still, it's a bit rough, to be honest with you. If they'd have said that, yeah, I don't know. They need to do something about it, to be honest with you. Okay. So I think that's pretty bad.
One thing I want to say about the Sabotage Critical Locations is that's also in Shadow Operations, which means that if you're taking that, you're not taking Rod or Deploy Scramblers or Raise the Banners, which are probably better in most cases, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to ask yourself, why am I putting myself out there? Why am I overextending into some strange parts of the board when I really don't need to? And I can just score Rod and get a 12 guaranteed points. Yeah, it's illogical. So the next one is called Brute Swarm, and that replaces Stranglehold or Engage with a worse Engage.
Okay.
So at the end of your turn, you're going to get 1 victory point for each of the things that happen. You've got to have more models in your opponent's deployment zone than your opponent does. You've got to have, so that's a bit of a weird one. You've got to have more models within your deployment zone than your opponent does. That's really easy to do. You've got to have more models on the battlefield, not in either deployment zone than your opponent does. And you've got to have all 3 of them to apply for an extra point. And the thing is, this is Engage, but in a weird way.
Yeah. And also, just thinking about that, your opponent only needs to deny one thing, and you lose 2 points. Yeah.
Exactly. And exactly. So it's like, All right, turn one. If you get turn one, then yeah, you can score 2 points really easily. But then if you go second, then your opponent just has to rush the board, and you can't deploy in their deployment zone turn one. So they can force you to have 1 point. And yeah, I can see in some ways that if your opponent again misplays to try and prevent points, they can sort of limit their board presence. But at the same time, why not just take engage for easy 3 points per turn?
Yeah.
Or just take Stranglehold. Stranglehold for me is one of my favorite ones because it's a double dipping secondary, right? I already want to be on objectives. I already want to be flipping those objectives. So I'm already getting points at the end of the turn for being there. So I don't think I'm ever going to take Brood Swarm because, except maybe a map, for example, the 4 mission objective map, where that's really bad for Genestealers against some armies. I had a game the other day with the 8th edition Codex against Thousand Suns on that map, and that's impossible. So maybe in that sense I might take it, but Stranglehold or Engage is just way better.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last one is.
All right. So the last one is an interesting one because it's a Purge the Enemy. So I think that's a prisoners section and bring it down. Or it might be assassinate one. I can't remember which one.
Let me check.
So this one's a weird one. So you can score multiple ways, right? So you can score 1 victory point if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed while they had a crossfire marker. Now that's really easy. I do that every turn, absolutely easy, because of how crossfire markers work, which we can talk about later. You can score 1 victory point if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed by an army set up from ambush or underground. Now, this is a bit more difficult because you've only got a limited amount of turns that you can do this.
It turns
there
2
are
and
ways
3 only, right?
Yeah, you can do it turn 1 because, you can do it turn 1 because technically it's asking if you were set from ambush, so that's from blips.
That's okay.
Or you can take the bonus system where you allocate a bonus per unit for points, and you can set 1 unit in strategic reserves and come down turn 1. So you can maybe set up, a flanking ridge runner unit that can just pile into 1 unit and kill 1. So it's not really difficult. But then turns 2 and 3, so yeah, you can score it then. But unless you're able to start using Return to the Shadow stratagem, which allows you to put a unit back into Deep Strike if they kill something in fight phase and have nothing within 6 inches, they can go back into Deep Strike for 2 CP. The problem with that is you don't get any benefits to Deep Strike. So it's really risky. So you got a 9-inch charge in the next turn. So realistically, you've got 3 turns where you'll score this. And then the last one is score 1 victory point if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed as a result of a ranged attack made by a model from your army, and that enemy was naturally exposed. And if you get turn 1, it's almost impossible to get this because you have to be on either side. So unless you do some sort of weird janky stuff where you've got a ridge runner that has just strategic reserves one side, you've got a bike squad that has auto advance 6 inches, and you've managed to cast the power to shoot an advance, and they manage to crossfire. But even then, terrain in between them is going to really limit what you can do. So realistically, you're scoring maybe 12 points maximum, I think, with this. And even if you're not, it's asking a lot of you to sort of set this up. So with this, I'm scoring on average 10 to 12 points, and I'm really trying to make it work. But honestly, it's more stressful to try and make this work because of how difficult and awkward it is than it is to just not take it.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It seems to fall into the same. So it is the assassinate, bring it down category. Yeah. So it seems to fall into like everything in that category, where it's the one you take when you can't think of anything else to take, basically.
Absolutely. This is it. So I've been testing it on maps where I can't take the mission because it's awkward where you got to score it in your command phase or anything like that, and they've got not enough prisoner points to make it worthwhile, or not bring it down, or it's a trap like Death Guard with assassinate.
Yeah.
But then it's forcing you into a really aggressive playstyle that I think is not necessarily smart approach with the army, to be honest. So I would probably for anyone that's not really comfortable with the Codex right now, I would not take this. Yeah, because it's going to really cause you to make some mistakes and lose units for a couple of points.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, where do you think we should start after that? What do you think is the most interesting section to talk about from the Codex?
Okay, so I think let's maybe talk about how the army plays out, because there's been some quite substantial changes with the crossfire system, and I think characters are probably one of the standout improvements in the entire army.
Okay.
So we can talk about characters, and we can talk about how cults look up, because there's a lot of big changes to cults. So I think, yeah, let's talk about characters. So basically, in 8th edition, most of the characters were not usable. Things like you rarely use the Sanctus anymore because his damage really wasn't worth it anymore. Some people did, but from a competitive standpoint, he really didn't do enough to warrant his points. Now you definitely take the Sanctus. Why is a question. So Crossfire, I think the whole point of Crossfire and the whole skill to it is being able to balance, being able to give a marker, being able to count a marker as exposed, and being able to provide utility across the board. And that's a really fine key balance that people need to start tuning for their list to work. I've seen a lot of people talk about, what's the most efficient way to put on a marker? Can I use hand flamers? Can I use jackals? Can I just use his Nexus's ability to get it, and then I can start using ambush? And it's like, no, take a step back. Think about what areas of the board you want to put a crossfire marker up, because you've only got a limited way of putting one up before you start having to take exposed. And then take a step back and think, right, well, actually, do I want to put utility across the board? So, for example, you can put the Nexus. One of his abilities is to put a crossfire marker on anyone, anywhere on the board.
Okay, yeah, that's strong.
And that is strong, because if I want to deep strike somewhere and I want to charge and I want to turn off Overwatch and fight last, then I use that marker for that. I will pick any unit I think, right, this is what I'm going to charge. So that marker from the Nexus is going to go and sit on there. So there's so many applications. For me, he's one of the best characters in the entire game because of how he abuses this system. And we'll come back to him in a second. So the Sanctus auto hits with his sniper. So that gives you a second guaranteed marker as long as he can see them within 36 inches. So for me, he's 70 points, and a lot of people are saying he's really expensive for 70 points. But there's another rule that he has. He cannot be shot within 12 inches unless you're within 12 inches.
So he's just safe, basically, most of the time.
He has scored me 20 victory points in primary points in every game so far.
Okay.
Because awesome. I will sit him on the backfield, and he'll just sniper people, throw on a marker, and just hold that objective, and that allows me to go really aggressive and start maintaining that board presence. Hive Guard do nothing to this guy because they can't. So whereas if I had 5 Acolytes, Hive Guard can just take that up, right?
Yeah, and with my Death Guard, that's my favorite thing, is when somebody leaves like a single model on an objective, and I'm just like, oh, there's a mortar right there. That's where the mortar's going.
Exactly. You can just be like, right, I'm exactly going to wipe out this objective, and I'm going to force my opponent to have to come back and defend. And whereas with this guy, he does not allow that, so he's giving me a free objective every game. Of course, there are some games where people can deep strike, but you can sort of leverage that with Metamorphs. They're really cheap, 60 points for 5 models, and they just, right now, if there's a deep strike, I will put them into either corner, give you some space to deep strike down, but just make sure you're not within 12 inches of the Sanctus. So then my Metamorphs can pick you up in my turn, basically. Okay. So yeah, the Sanctus for me is a massively improved model, and we definitely include him now. For a 70 points, I think he's really undercosted, personally, but that's just me. So the Nexus is the next one that, for me, probably one of the best characters in the game, based on just how he plays with your army's rules. So we talked about that it gives a free crossfire marker onto any unit that you decide, doesn't matter where they are. His other ability is, so you've got 3 characters that have buffs. You've got a Primus, you've got a Clamavus, and I forget the other one, but it's not important. And what the Nexus does is he allows your buff, let's say from the Primus, to go through him, and he can put that buff onto any core unit anywhere on the board.
So he's kind of like a Vox caster.
Exactly, with unlimited range. So a big strategy of mine is to go really aggressive turn one with my bikes. And then because they're core, in the command phase, my Primus can give one unit reroll ones to hit and reroll ones to wound.
Gotcha.
And with the relic for the Nexus, I can do this ability twice. I can't give rerolls one to wound twice, but I can give the aura of rerolls of one to hit twice. So both Jackals,
like 2 squads of bikes going up, both of them now have reroll ones to hit.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Now there's even more janky stuff in the book. So they give any aura on that model onto the unit that you choose. So there are relics like a 5-up invulnerable save, right, in a specific cult. So if you give that onto the Primus, he's giving his rerolls to hit of 1, and he's giving a 5-up invulnerable save as well to anywhere on the board.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of overlapping buffs and a lot of creativity in how you use the Nexus in this army to just transform buffs from Primus or the Clamavus or the other person, I forgot his name, onto your core units, which is, don't get me wrong, there's only 4 core units in the book. It's Neophytes, it's Acolytes, it's Metamorphs, and it's Jackals.
Okay.
So it just sort of
similar to the Necrons, where we only had a couple core units initially.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. It is bad in the sense that it limits you, but once you read the book, I think you might realize why it limits you, because there are so many powerful buffs that you can give out. And I think if we had like Ridge Runners, or if we had like Goliath Rock Grinders, or if we had Aberrants that were core, then it would be really strong.
Okay.
And yeah, quite frankly, I'm happy with this system. So we'll see how it transpires, but I feel confident that the book is fine as it is, and I really don't want any nerfs, to be honest.
So how many points is the Nexus?
50.
So you're at 120 now if you're taking the Nexus and the Sanctus. Who else? So you need a Primus as well, as you were saying. So that's another what?
80 points. So you're definitely going to take a Primus without a shadow of a doubt. So the problem with the book as well is they've kind of limited our HQs. They've moved a couple of HQs into elites, and only HQs now can take warlord traits. So let's just a little bit on the character slot. So if you have a HQ, you can bring 1 extra character without it taking up a slot.
Okay.
So yeah, which is really good because our army is really built on elites. And so it allows you to take, so for example, I've got a Magus and I've got a Primus. I can take my Nexus and my Sanctus for free. Not for free in points wise, but for free in slots.
Slots wise. Yes, gotcha.
Yes, it makes building this army so much better because it's very character orientated.
I'm equating it again back to Death Guard and back to Sisters, where you have those type of things where they trigger like the what's it called in Death Guard, where you can take the
Poxwalkers, or you can take fetid Virians.
Yeah, fetid Virians. Yeah, so it's similar to that then.
Yeah, it's very similar. I think it's better than fetid Virians in the sense that you can take if you take 3 HQs, you don't need to take a single slot for a character. But it's their own unique rule, I would say.
Yeah, it sounds like you have the same kind of issue that those other armies have, though, where you have to kind of balance how many characters you take and not take too many buffing characters and lose on your core units. Then,
absolutely, there is a lot of traps in this army. So there's a points upgrade system as well, where you can give amazing buffs, which we'll touch upon soon, onto any unit in the army, and they're expensive. So it's like 10, 15, or 20 points. And there's a trap in there that you can take 9 and spend like 150 points. And then you kind of have to ask yourself, am I limiting my board presence a little bit too much by trying to drive hyper efficiency in these units? And it's the same with characters. There's so many good characters I don't think there's a single bad one. There's not a single unit in this codex I would not take. And you then have to sort of create a balance where you think, all right, I've got enough buffs, or have I got too little, or have I got too many, and I'm actually hurting myself. And this is an iteration now that I've been having to make after every game I've played over the last few days. So I've landed, I think, 5 characters because I know guarantee 3 are not going to die, maybe 4. The way it plays out, I've not lost anything but a Kelemorph, and the Kelemorph just likes to die.
The Kelemorph's the one that runs in and shoots stuff with pistols, right?
Oh yeah, let's just quickly talk about our boy the Kelemorph because he's had some interesting changes. So he doesn't get the relic anymore of Oppressor's Bane, but that's okay. He gets a better relic. His basic damage now is damage 1 rather than damage 2, and that's made me really sad. And then when I looked at that, I thought, I'm never taking him because damage 1, he can snipe characters, and he does Immortal on a wound roll of 6+ in addition. No, unmodified 6, sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
But damage 1 to snipe a character when everything's got an invulnerable save these days, it's like, no, it doesn't feel good. But then I looked. So his other abilities are when he shoots, he can move 6 inches.
Okay,
so
that's good.
You can deep strike him down, shoot something, and then move 6 inches into a vehicle.
Can you still move into a vehicle? Didn't they FAQ that so you can't?
Maybe they did. I don't know. This seems to be pretty popular strategy within the GSC Discord. So I've never done it myself because I'm not running many vehicles. But he can definitely move 6 inches at least.
Okay.
And he can still ignore characters with his relic pistol, and he's got an invulnerable save still, and he can give rerolls of 1 to infantry if he kills a model. Now he can get a relic called Worm Fire Rounds, I think it's called. I've got the relics here. Worm Tooth Rounds. And basically what this does is it doesn't change his gun, it gives him bullets. So
you have special issue ammunition.
Yes, he has special issue ammunition. And so what it does is every time he shoots one of his pistols, and he's got 3, he can choose to use this round. And if you do, it's heavy 1, strength 6, -3, damage 3.
Okay.
So, yes. So you can do... this army has a lot of flat 3 damage. It's worth noting. So you can do... Yeah, so he can do 3 shots. And if he hits, he can make another shot. So he can get up to 6 shots with this flat 3 damage. And you can buff him so that when he drops down, he can give crossfire. So he can ignore the penalty to move and shoot with this heavy weapon, with this heavy round. Okay. And exposed. So he's strength 6 and he can get +1 to wound on the target.
All right, so he's wounding knights on 4s.
He's wounding knights on 4s. He's wounding dread knights on 3s. He's wounding terminators on 2s.
Yeah.
Scarab Occult Terminators do not like this guy, especially if they did not get their invulnerable save off or -1 to hit. So he does quite a bit. And then he's also got a stratagem that if he dies, he can shoot again.
Okay.
For me, my Kelemorph dies every time because obviously I want to shoot again. So what I'll do is I'll drop him down. He'll kill, mad props to him yesterday. He killed a greater demon of Slanesh. He killed a keeper of secrets, and then he moved. And then when he dies, he can shoot again, and it's like, oh, fantastic. So he's like, yeah, he's a bit of an assassin hero. Now he finally lives up to his name.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's really fun. So he's improved. He's only 80 points now, so he hasn't actually changed in value. The next one, which is Primus. Let's talk about Primus. Let's talk about Magus, and then we can move forward. So the Primus is probably one of our most necessary characters because he can give this whole affinity that he does with the Nexus is incredible. But he also gives innate rerolls of 1 to hit with Fukua, and he can give 1 unit a reroll 1 to wound Fukua within 6 inches or with the Nexus anywhere. You can upgrade him to give 1 unit non-core rerolls of 1 to wound once per game.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're really going skew into something heavy, like maybe an Aberrant, or you want to Alpha Strike, perhaps with 3 Ridge Runners, you can just pop it straight away and be like, right, they're going to reroll wound rolls of 1. And yeah, you can create some hyper efficiency in one phase of the game really well. But I sort of turned my Primus into quite a smashy character. So I've given him +1 attack. So he's now 5 attacks. I've given him a relic that gives him an extra attack. And what it does is he wounds on 2s. Again, unless his vehicles or Titanic. It's -2 AP and it's flat 3 damage.
Yeah, again, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually charged him into Bellicle yesterday. And because of my cult, I get +1 to hit if I charge. I gave him Might from Beyond, so he had 7 attacks. He made all 7, wounded all 7 because he's wounded on 2s, and Bellicle failed 5 saves. So Bellicle took 15 damage to the face. Which my opponent was like, okay, fair enough. So yeah, for me, as you can see in my list, there is no Patriarch. Because between the Magus and the Primus, I just don't feel the need for the Patriarch. The Primus for me is more smashy. And unless you build really skew cults in like Twisted Helix, we can get +1 damage, then the Patriarch is really good. But outside of that, I'm really happy with the Primus, and it's nice to finally use him, considering how much I was slating him in 8th edition. So my last character that I use is my Magus. So Magus has had some interesting changes. He now innately casts 2, which is fantastic. There's no upgrade for him to get +1 to cast anymore. But he does give a 5-up Feel No Pain within 6 inches to infantry or bikers. So he can prevent things like Thousand Suns getting Wrath of Magnus, which is really good, I think. Especially when craft worlds are going to be growing. Yeah, it's an aura.
So you're just basically he's almost like a cross apothecary spellcaster.
Exactly. He provides really good defensive utility against psychers, which it only works in the psychic phase. So
okay, so it's just a 5. It's essentially the same as Mortal Wounds 5-up Feel No Pain then.
Yeah. Sorry, I must have misspoke. Yeah, it's a 5-up Feel No Pain in the psychic phase versus Mortal Wounds.
Okay, gotcha.
So all right, maybe it doesn't sound as good as I originally said, but to me that's really good because as a horde army, we are really expensive and we are really prone to mortal wounds because if you shoot us, we die. If you smite us, we die. So this is just an added bonus to create a bit more longevity. But that's not the best thing. So he's got 2 casts. He does that. There is a so he gets a bonus buff. You can buff 1 Psyker for I think it's 15 points, and they can know an extra power. So he now knows 3 powers and casts 2. There's 2 potential relics. One is called the Crouchling, which many people are going to be familiar with. And the Crouchling replaces a familiar. Familiars have changed. They allow you to reroll a psychic test once per game, rather than knowing an extra power. They allow you to reroll a test.
You have the replacement of knowing the extra power anyway, so.
Exactly. So there's many ways to sort of increase his power. So there's 2 relics. I think this is the worst one. This gives you a reroll test per phase, and each time the psychic test is passed, if it's if the dice results are the same, it can't be denied. So that's pretty strong. Okay. So there's a mathematical chance that you can't be denied, which is really nice.
2 4s, getting an 8 power casts, and it's undeniable.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And I really think once Craft World drops and they get some probably really pushy psychic stuff where they probably can do what the Magus is I'm about to tell you and deny you, then that's really strong, I think. Especially against Grey Knights as well, with the +1 to deny. I really like that relic. I've not used it yet because there's a better one, but I do like that relic. The second relic you can give to a caster is called the Unwilling Orb, and this is really nasty. So it gives +1. It gives an extra deny to a caster. It gives +1 to cast if they cast a Malediction or Witchfire. So that's a debuff or a mortal wound spell, which is really nice. But it allows the bearer to deny psychic power anywhere on the board.
Even out, no range, no line of sight, nothing.
There is no range, no line of sight. I can sit my Magus in one corner and deny you on the other.
Okay.
And he can do that twice per turn because he has 2 denies.
Oh, That's very nice.
Yeah. So with the if the rumors are true and craft rolls drop and they're going to be really strong, then this is a really good tool in the utility belt of us players being able to deal with that army. It's really powerful, really powerful. So I'm really happy about that. I think a lot of people won't be, but this is the world we live in. So yeah, so that's the Magus. He's really good. I really enjoy taking these two as my HQs. I don't take the Patriarch, and that's that. There are other notable characters like the Clamavus who can turn off obsec and prevent actions. The Locust is the bodyguard. He's got a really cool interaction. He can stand near a character, and you cannot shoot or fight that character if he's within 3 inches of you, and he can heroically intervene 6 inches.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's also
So
very good.
yeah, there are some really fun interactions where you can take like a 20-man squad, pop them behind cover right next to the Locust, have the Patriarch or whomever, or the Kelemorph or whomever, just up front. You cannot shoot and fight them. And then if you fight the Locust, he can then throw the wounds onto the chaff. And it's a really fun interaction. Really, obviously frustrating for the opponent. Really fun for yourself. But it costs points, and I'm kind of thinking, why would you do that? I think it's less competitive and it's more just having fun with the game, I would say.
Yeah, and as you said, there's already so many characters that you want that you have to kind of like just make tough decisions anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. There are, yeah, exactly. If it was the case, you do this if you just wanted to have a bit more of a casual game and just enjoy interactions that are possible and create combinations that are fun. But yeah, I only look at this game from a competitive space. So for me, it is that a casual focus.
Okay.
I guess the one last notable. A lot of people will ask this, and I'll say it now. The Abominant is not a HQ anymore. The Abominant did not get any extra attacks. He's still stuck at 3 attacks. However, he is D3 plus 3 damage. So he cannot take a Warlord trait. He's only got 3 attacks. You can upgrade him to give 1 extra attack if he charges for once per game. And he does give hit rolls to aberrants, but outside of that, it is what it is. Is not the best. They could have done so much with him, but they chose not to. So
yeah. So he's just a beat stick character right now.
He's just a beat stick. There's one more character I'll just quickly explain because I think it's gonna pop up a lot and people are gonna discuss him because of the way he interacts. But there's the Acolyte Icon Ward. So a thing that was revealed by Games Workshop is the Cult of Icon. And the Cult of Icon is an ability that you can put on your Neophytes, your Acolytes, and your Metamorphs. And so it replaces the 8th edition Cult where you can reroll hit rolls of 1. And instead, in your command phase, you can bring D3 models back to a unit or D6 if it's Neophytes. And what the Icon Ward does is he allows you to do this a second time if you're within 6 inches of him. So you can bring 2d6 to a maximum of 6 Neophytes back, 2d3 Acolytes to a maximum of 3. So you can't get more than 3. So you can get 1 and then 2 from him, but you can't get 3 and then 3. So it has to be a maximum of 3 for everything or 6 for Neophytes. He also can bring back Bikers because it's core. And you don't need to have a banner, a Cult of Icon. So you can sit in with next to 10 Bikers and bring D3 back in the command phase for each Biker squad. And in addition to that, he does an action for Deep Strike. Not Deep Strike, for +1 to charges. That does not work with Deep Strike because it perform. Oh no, it does work. If you Deep Strike him, it does not work because you've got to do it before the Deep Strike part of the movement phase. But he can move anyone on the board, do the action, and then a unit Deep Striking nearby will get +1 to their charge rolls.
Okay.
So that's him. I don't particularly use him because I don't think I'm not going to revive anything in this squad. Once it's done its job, it dies.
They're fire and forget.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you didn't mention the Reductus Saboteur. I take it that you're not using him at all, or have you tried him?
Okay, so in my eighth list, because unfortunately I've got a tournament this weekend and I'm not allowed to use the new codex, I'm using two of her because I feel she's absolutely necessary in a vehicle monster meta that we're in right now. Flat 3 damage on them is fantastic. However, in ninth, I have so much flat 3 damage that I've got to start asking myself, why would I bring her? She doesn't have crossfire. I can pay 1 relic slot to give her crossfire, but then why would I do that when I have such good relics? We generally have amazing relics that I am bringing 3 every game. That I really want to give up a good relic slot for her to get crossfire? No, I don't think so. I think maybe there is play once perhaps Knights get their codex and we have to tailor it into Knights. But right now, the Kelemorph does almost the same job.
Okay.
And I already have her ability on the Sanctus, so I can hold an objective with the Sanctus. So I think it's redundancy to have more than one of this sort of type unit. I just don't think she's got a spot. And it's really sad because I love the model. It's gorgeous. I painted 2 myself. And I'm probably not going to get to use her unless they bring some buffs in or they just give her the keyword because it's just pointless right now. And it's sad.
Fair.
I will say this though, there is an interesting interaction. She does have 1 stratagem with the Reductus or a core infantry unit, I think it is near an objective. They can, at the end of your turn, they can put down a bomb on that objective, and if a unit lands within it, they take D3 mortals. So she could put her natural bomb onto an objective, and then plant another explosive on this objective.
Yeah.
And then if you charge it, it's D3 mortals. Plus whatever, either 1 mortal per unit per model, or 3 or 4, is it? Yeah, 4 per vehicle or monster. So it's pretty interesting.
And she's similar to the Sanctus, where she has defensive capabilities.
Yeah, so she's got the ability where you cannot shoot her unless you're within 12. She has -1 to be hit at all times. And she is +1 to her cover save if she's sat in cover. So she's essentially got a 3-up armor save because she's always going to be in cover. It'd be silly not to. And she's -1 to hit. And it's actually a really good defensive platform, except the Sanctus has an invulnerable save.
Okay.
And she does not. So
yeah, I mean, invulnerable saves are king right now in this edition.
Exactly. An armor save does nothing for her if she gets charged. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. It feels kind of bad to use her in the codex because I think like there's way more damage potential in other places.
Okay. How about we talk about the different cults?
Yes.
Tell me 2 of them that you think that you really like in this.
Absolutely. Okay, so for me, the first thing I will say is Games Workshop have done an amazing job at making all of the cults viable. Even Twisted Helix has some play, even though I still do not like this cult. All of the cults for me are viable. If there's a standout if there's a standout cult for me to pick, other than what I use, and I'll go into mine because I think it's the best, is probably Hive Cult. And what Hive Cult does is it allows you to perform an action if you fell back or advanced.
Okay.
Yep. Or you can perform an action and still shoot. So especially if we get some new action sort of secondaries in the chapter approved that's happening, then it really creates this interesting playstyle where you can do multiple things with your army and be really efficient about it. So you can charge with your Ridge Runners, for example. A big problem I had in 8th and why I never ran 9 is that they were blast. So if you charge them in, which for me, they are built as amazing because they go 9-inch pre-game move and then 14 inches. They're built as amazing board control or move blocking units where they could just move forward, charge, and prevent the rest of your opponent's army from getting to the board to create you that early game points advantage. But the problem in 8th is that mining lasers are blast, so you can't shoot them in combat. Now... Yeah. Whereas now you can shoot, you can move them forward, shoot, charge, get into combat, survive because they got a bit of a buff to survive, and then when you're in your turn, you can just fall back, shoot, and just keep rinse and repeating. Of course, if you're against a really melee-focused army, this is not the best strategy because you will die. But against something like, say, Sisters or Orcs, like Buggy's Orcs or anything like that, then yeah, this is probably a good tactic to just keep doing that and frustrating your opponent. So for me, it's really good because it gives flexibility to the army. Its stratagem allows you to pick out one unit and give it crossfire. It allows you to pick out one unit. So let's say Ridge Runners, they can, when they shoot one unit, they are counting that unit as being crossfire. Okay. So they get +1 to hit basically. So so they can fall back and then they can hit on 3s without having to worry about putting a crossfire marker with Sanctus or with the Nexus or having to do the whole shindig with crossfire. They can just shoot innately and be like, yeah, what about it? So that's that. They've got a really good psychic power, I think. So their power is a warp charge value of 5. And you get +2 to the result for every Hive Cult core within 6 inches of the caster. And if the result is less than the movement, the closest enemy unit within 18 inches invisible take D3 mortal wounds. And if it's greater or equal to the movement, they suffer 3 mortal wounds.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
Yeah, so it's a nice way. It's almost pretty easy to get flat 3 damage, especially on Terminators and things like that. Like, for example, killing 1 Death Shroud just on a 5 is really, it really feels bad for you.
Yes, so, it is. Every one of those lost is a big problem. And I know
exactly.
And know in the past, though, they could be kind of difficult for GSC to deal with.
Yeah, I don't think they are now, but we can get to that later about matchups. Yeah. So Hive Cult also have a really interesting relic. And this is probably one of the only times I would take a Patriarch because he can reroll wound rolls. Is each time the bearer makes an attack and a modified wound roll of 5+, saving throws and invulnerable saves cannot be made.
Ooh, okay.
So the Patriarch has 6 attacks and he can reroll his wound rolls. So you can just fish for 5s. On a 6 wound roll of 6, it's flat 3 damage. So yeah, there's been talks of battle reports against the new Custodes where people have lost a shield captain to a Patriarch with this relic because they don't get a save. And it's like 3 6s and you've lost your shield captain. Yeah, straight out.
Crazy good.
Yeah, that's really good. And so yeah, the only reason I'm not using this is because I think Michael is better. And the Warlord trait is basically any Hive Cult core unit within 6 inches score an additional hit. But you kind of have to question yourself.
On 6s, right? Yeah.
Yeah, on 6s. But the problem with this is cults are very squishy. Core for the cult are very squishy. So that's your neophytes and your jackals in this sense, because they're the ones that shoot. How realistic are you going to get this aura off without losing too many units in your opponent's shooting phase? I don't know.
So I was going to say, what are you looking at? What cult are you using?
All right, all right. So the first thing is when I got access to this codex, I got access to this codex on Friday. One of the content creators started leaking pages to me so I could start building up an understanding of the army. So I'm really appreciative of that. The first thing I did was I looked at cults because that is going to decide how you play the game. And I have a very specific play style, and I wanted to find the one that is going to replicate that and allow me to sort of transition from 8th to 9th the most effective.
Okay.
So I looked at all the cults and I was like, all right, Paupers is changed. It's all right. It's made me sad a little bit, but it's probably had buffs. Bladed Cog, there's no more Overthrow the Oppressors. It's more defensive now, but it still is good, but it hasn't got what I wanted. And then I went to the custom cults and I read the system, and basically in the custom cults, you've got 4 points that you can make up a custom with. and each trait has a specific point value. So you don't pick 2, you can mix and match. You can pick 4 if you want, as long as they've got 1 point each.
Okay.
And so I was looking at them, and I found a combination called Impassioned and Industrial Affinity. And this is 4 points, and I have no idea why. So Impassioned is 3 points, and what it gives you basically is if you charge, are charged, or heroically intervene, you get +1 to your hit roll, which is nice.
Okay.
So my Acolytes charge, I hit on 2s. My Metamorphs hit on 2s. My Goliath Rock Grinder, I hit on 2s. Characters get +1 to hit, so if there's any minuses, they hit on 2s. And I was like, oh, that's really good. So what else can, I'm going to take that. What else can I sort of supplement that with? And then I found Industrial Affinity, and I read it, and I was like, it sounds like it's all right. And it's each time a model with this creed makes an attack roll with an industrial weapon, you can ignore any or all hit roll, ballistic skill, or weapon skill modifiers. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. Mixing that with +1 to hit, my rock critters are going to be industrial weapons. They must be. So I can ignore their -1 to hit with the weapon, and I can hit on a strength 8 -4 flat 3 damage weapon on a 2+.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, all right, that's pretty good. And then I got given the industrial weapons sheet, and pretty much 80% of the weapons in my army are industrial in my list.
So everything in your list is ignoring basically to hit and weapon skill modifiers.
Yeah. So my rock grinders can shoot in melee on a 3+, as long as I give them a crossfire token.
Okay.
They can then hit in melee on a 2+, or 3+ if I charge, 2+ if I charge. My jackals, my grenades on the jackals, grenades on the acolytes, my mine lasers, all of my rock critters, my aberrants, but I've not got aberrants in the list at the minute. Everything can ignore any modifiers. And I'm like, this is insane. For 1 point, that is probably the most broken interaction in this entire army, because it's 1 point.
Yeah, that's really good. Also, like, I know they're not being taken, but there might be a chance that this happens in the future, where like the Calexis assassin, who says always treat this as a, to hit as a weapon skill of 6+. You're counting that as a 2+ still, because you ignore weapon skill modifiers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Calexis will die. This is really good, because one of my biggest concerns is what is going to happen with Tau and Craft Worlds. When I've looked at this codex, I think there is a lot of stuff that I can do. So if I can do this, then I'm really concerned about Tau and Craft Worlds, because they sort of fall in the same category of squishy, and they need other metrics and other sort of utility to create survivability. So this just shows us up for any strong codexes that come down the line that really can sort of give you any negatives to hit or negatives to weapon skill and ballistic skill. But it's 1 point for that, and I think that should be 2 or 3, because that's probably the best trait in the entire game.
Yeah, I could see that being really good.
Mm.
I know in my sister's lists that I play, the order I take is Valor's Heart, just for the stratagem for the ignore all ballistic skill and weapon skill modifiers, and that's 1 CP to give to 1 unit for 1 turn. So
yeah, exactly. This must be really heartbreaking to hear that I can do this on everything. But I will say this though: the army's problems has not changed. The Genestealer Cult army was always squishy, and they always died, and that has not changed. Even with a toughness 4 on Acolytes, or a 3-up armor save on a rock grinder and -1 damage, if your opponent wants to kill it, they're going to kill it.
Yeah.
So the fact that there has been an overload in damage, I think, is what is going to make the codex viable, is with the utility as well, because we really struggle with trading if we didn't have this damage, and we would just under trade and we'd lose the game every time. So
yeah, and 9th has gone to a format of you need to be able to trade efficiently.
Exactly. This is the army. This is the game that we play now, and if you don't trade 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, then you're gonna just start losing. This is why Drukhari are so strong, is because they can trade more efficiently than anybody, and this is what makes them really good.
Yeah.
So yeah. What should we move on to next?
Let's talk about the strats, and then
Okay.
I think after that we can take a look at the list that you're running right now, and you can run through the units and the warlord traits and relics that you're using in there.
Absolutely. So stratagems. So for me, almost all of our stratagems are 1 CP and usable. They've done a fantastic job in creating unique and situational stratagems, which is really what you want. You don't want to have one stratagem that you'd be like, right, I'm going to use this. I have to use this every single turn, every phase, like people do with CP reroll. You want to have something that you can build around and you can switch on when you really need it. So, for example, Games Workshop did reveal this one called Overlord Fuel Cells. You can add, for 1 CP, you can add 1 damage to a unit that uses industrial weapons. So, for example, my rock grinders, I use this a lot on my rock grinders or my jackals. So my jackals, I can give them +1 damage to all of their industrial weapons. But if you roll any hit rolls of 1, you take a mortal wound. So for 1 CP, a combination that I really enjoy is there's another 1 CP you can do max shots with your demolition charges, which are strength 8, -3, flat 2 damage. So with Overload Fuel Cells, what you can do is you can give their demolition charges flat 3 damage, shoot 6, hit on 3s, reroll 1s, and then wound on 2s and reroll 1s. And that's a really hyper efficient combination into the current game. You know, that's like what, maybe 4 Terminators dead, or I almost killed a Redemptor with this and the mining laser. So you can really create some hyper efficiency with these stratagems. So another one that I really enjoy is there is one called Clandestine Goals, which is similar to the 8th edition where you didn't have to show one of your Maelstrom cards. But this is, I can use this stratagem when I select a secondary objective, and I don't show you that objective until I first score it.
Okay.
So if I've got a really weirdly built list where the to the last is not obvious, I could use this and you wouldn't know what I'm taking. And then when I score it at the end of the game, then I'll be like, oh, here's my 10 points from to the last, or 15 points, and they'll be like, oh, right, okay, fantastic. A lot of the good stratagems, such as Line in Wait, Perfect Ambush, ignore AP 1 and 2 on your Grot Grinders, have all gone. A Perfect Ambush for the double tap on move D6 inches is just gone from the game. Line in Wait has moved into the buffing system. So people don't need to worry about that, but it's only a one-time use thing. So that's pretty sad. There are a lot of utility stratagems. So for example, Neural Overload, I mentioned this with the Sanctus. For 1 CP, if he does a damage to a unit, he can roll 3d6. If he beats that model's leadership, then you can prevent that enemy from using any auras until the start of your next shooting phase. And if they're a Psyker, they can suffer Perils of the Warp.
Okay.
Which for me is really good. There's some stratagems where you can give a crossfire marker. There's some stratagems where there's 2 stratagems where you can ignore Overwatch. There's a stratagem where you can give fight last with an enemy with a crossfire marker. One of them ignores Overwatch with an enemy with a crossfire marker. There are ways where you can give exposed to enemies, which is +1 to wound and no cover save, etc. So there's quite a lot of things that you can do with the stratagems, and I think they're really good. My favorite one, absolutely, is called Return to the Shadows. And what that does is, I mentioned this previously, if an infantry acolytes kill something in the fight phase, before they consolidate, as long as they're 6 inches from anywhere on the board, 6 inches from any models, then they can be removed and then deep strike anywhere on the board next time. So this actually really allows you to create a little bit more maneuverability around secondaries or anything like that. So for example, if you see like 2 1-wound models, just charge 5 guys into them, kill them, and then you can put them into deep strike so they can go and do rod somewhere else, or they can deep strike and get you engaged or anything like that. Or it also helps you if you've got it to the last. like on maybe Acolytes or Aberrants. It allows you to use them, utilize them, kill something, and then go back in deep strike, and then drop down where it's safe. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of creativity in a lot of the stratagems, I would say, and I think they've been really well made. One of my disappointments with some of the armies like Drukhari is you only use like 2 or 3 stratagems every turn, and that's it. Death Guard, there's some good stratagems, but you don't use every single one.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I get 10 CP. I have a 5-up CP regen, and I'm out of CP by turn 3 and 4. I think because they're just so good at creating an advantage, early game advantage, because it's just so it's really good stratagems, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds awesome. All right, then let's move
All
on
right.
to your list stuff.
Right. I will go in a little bit of detail about my list because I think
I'm gonna flip over to TTS.
So I ran GSC all of last year, and I've run them into all of my tournaments. I did a bunch of physical tournaments, a lot of TTS tournaments, and quite a lot of TTS leagues. And so I've been using Genestealers a lot in a competitive environment, and the problem I found with them is creating the right playstyle that I think works. So in 8th edition, what I found works is having a really strong physical melee presence that you can move forward, flip objectives, and remove stuff, and create that really good early trading, supplied with a shooting support. And that in the early last year, that was me using 6 to 12 Hive Guard before Octarius, and that was phenomenal. And then I decided, how can I switch this to pure Genestealers? So I switched it to my Neophyte spam with Mining Lasers. And then in my last iteration, I moved it to like 3 Neophytes with Mining Lasers, 2 Sanctuses, Aberrants, and then a pile of melee Acolytes. And the idea is that you kill what can kill your Acolytes, and your Acolytes kill what is ever on an objective, or that kills your shooting support. So it works quite well. The first thing I wanted to do when I went to the 9th Codex is to make sure that I can transition this playstyle, because I do really well with it, into a new list.
Okay.
So I've used so many different units in the last 13 games, so much theory crafting. I've played against myself, trying to see what I can do with alpha striking, and what I've come to realize is that things like Aberrants, I don't particularly like them because they die. They have 2 attacks each, and they're -1 damage, toughness 5, 3 wounds, but they've got a 5-up armor save.
Yeah.
All your opponent has to do is make 15 wounds, and they die. So I tried them. I love them. I love my models, and I thought, I can't do this. So what I've done now is my list has changed into a very MSU approach. So you can see I've got 4 squads of rock cutters. I'm probably going to swap out 1 squad of rock cutters for drills. I will explain what Acolytes do soon, because the difference in weapons make a difference, of course. But I've got 4 squads of 10 Acolytes, because if they charge something at flat 3 damage, 8 attacks, 12 with them if I give them Might from Beyond, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s if the Primus buffs them, they are going to kill anything they charge. Like, I think on average is some
+1 damage, right?
No, you can't. The +1 damage is only a shooting.
Oh, it's only
shooting. You can give them +1 strength though. So if a toughness 8 vehicle or like a knight pops up, then strength 9 rock cutters is going to be tasty. Yeah. So I always start with having an acolytes in there, because they are just so good at what they do with this army. They're quick, they deep strike, and they slap. And then thing that I wanted to do in 8th is take an MSU approach. Drukhari field 20, 25 models or something daft like that. But each 5 witches were killing 10 acolytes, no problem. And I thought, right, well, we need something that we can do to really create efficiency and being able to trade 1-to-1 and just extend the life of my army. And in 8th, you could not do that. Acolytes were 2 attacks each. In a 5-man squad, -1 AP, or -4 on 6s, and it just was not enough.
Okay.
And now I think that it is. What they've done is they've given them flat 2 AP, and if you don't have a rocket or a rocks or whatever, you get 3 attacks. So a basic 5-man squad is giving me 16 attacks, and when I charge, it's hitting on 2s. At AP 2, I think I think that is almost enough to be able to trade in a Drukhari meta.
What's their strength?
Strength 4, strength 4. You can buff them in with other cults, but for mine, I'm not getting them above strength 4. But strength 4 is okay. If there's anything toughness 5, I'm not charging them into toughness 5. I have Metamorphs, which we'll go into soon. But what it allows me to do is I can do actions with them, and then if I need to, I can go and kill 5 grotesques, probably with acolytes. I can kill 5 witches. I can definitely kill some sisters.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm going to swap sisters.
I mean, sisters die to everything. just like GSC, they're another glass cannon.
Yes.
They die to everything.
Absolutely. But also they can really do damage into poxwalkers. So 5-man, they're not going to kill a squad outright, but enough damage is enough damage, right? If you kill 5 or 6, then you take the objectives as long as they don't kill you back, which they probably will. But the idea was I can still do something with a squad. So I tried to create a very MSU approach while still having my hammers to really do the damage. So yeah. So that's what I did. I added 3 squads of these in to support and create board presence with my 4 squads of 10 acolytes. And one of the things I did in 8th as well is I can't say I'm an adopter, but I definitely drove a popularity around Metamorphs. And a lot of people in 8th were telling me, no, Metamorphs are terrible. They don't do any damage, 3 attacks, strength 4 -1. You just don't take them. Now I'm using 3. I was using 1 squad of 10 in 8th. Now I'm using 3 squads of 5 because, yeah, they've still got 3 attacks each, but they're strength 5, they're 3 AP, and they fight on death as their basic profile.
Okay, that's always good. Yeah. That,
for me, is insane utility. I don't think there's anything in the Codex that replaces the what Metamorphs do. Nothing in the Codex guarantees you almost a 1-to-1 trade because I can put them anywhere, and if they charge, I get to fight.
Yeah.
That's
similar to how I use my Repentia. I take 3 squads of 5 Repentia because they have the strat but it costs me 2 CP to fight on death.
Ooh. That's brutal.
Yeah. So, but I'll screen like a unit if you're gonna come. If you want to charge the thing, I'll put the 5 Repentia in front, or I'll throw them into a really tough unit that I know they're gonna die to. You want to spend the stuff to interrupt them, still gonna get the fight.
Absolutely. This is exactly what This is exactly how I use my Metamorphs. On some maps, I will put them around an objective. So if you want to get onto that objective, you're gonna have to go through my Metamorphs. Or you can shoot them and not get onto that objective, and that's still okay for me. Or I will charge them into units, knowing that there's 60 points. So if I charge them into a horde unit, or if I charge them into Space Marines, or even if I charge them into Terminators, I'm not going to kill the squad, but I'm going to kill enough, and it's 60 points, and it stops you from, just making more board presence in your next turn or whatever. I really rate Metamorphs. 180 points for that utility is insane. So yeah. I absolutely, and plus they're core as well, so you can buff them, and I absolutely love them. So I decided a 10-man squad is probably not what I want. What I want is more an MSU approach, so I can cover more areas of the board. So that's what I took. And then as soon as I saw the Rock Grinder profile, Rock Grinders. So for me, my philosophy is hyper efficiency, so I can trade. This is also why I had hand flamers on my acolytes in 8th, because they can shoot one thing and then they can charge another. I don't have hand flamers anymore because right now, until Craftworlds get a new codex, I don't really see the exact need for my hand flamers, because it's still 3 points and that's 30 points per squad. Yeah, there's an argument that they can grip a crossfire token, but with my setup, I'm absolutely comfortable with the amount of crossfire tokens that I can throw up. So I don't really need an extra hand flamer. So instead, what I thought is I like hyper efficiency. If a unit can shoot and a unit can charge, that is perfect for me. And as soon as I saw the Rock Grinder come out with flat 3 damage on, maintain the flat 3 damage on heavy seismic cannons, but hitting on 3 weapon skill, I was like, yes, I'm going to take them.
Yeah.
So I'm going, 3 Rock Grinders, because they, this is another reason for taking 5-man squads, is they can go into a Rock Grinder. So for example, I could put 5 Acolytes into a Rock Grinder. The Rock Grinder can then charge forward. It can hit on 3s with its heavy seismic, flat 3 damage, or 6 shots at flat 2 damage. I'm going to get anything I want to shoot flat 2 damage at, I'm going to get +1 to hit and wounds. I'll be winning on 2s. So it can really chug out quite a lot of shots. And then it charges. It gets 8 attacks on the charge, strength 8, -2, flat 2 damage.
So it can
it's
put
3
up
up armor.
16 damage in one melee round.
It can, yes, it can. It's going to hit on 2s because it gets +1 if it charges.
And you're ignoring all modifiers. Well, I probably don't have any, but yeah.
I'm ignoring any modifiers that my opponent's going to give to me. And then when it does die, because it's a 3 up armor save now, it doesn't have a feel no pain. In my army, it does not have an invulnerable save, but it has -1 damage. So 10 wounds, toughness 7, -1 damage, 3 up armor save is not bad at all. It's Dreadnought level. I don't think it's as good as a Dreadnought, but it is Dreadnought level, and I think it's been costed appropriately for what it does. But I can put 110 points.
I mean, that's cheap. That's pretty cheap. That's cheaper than every Dreadnought I've got.
Yeah, it's cheaper than every Dreadnought, but it's not core like most Dreadnoughts. It does have it's got a seismic, but it's only got a seismic and a heavy stubber, so its damage is limited. Although you can create efficiency around it, but like a Redemptor Dreadnought is what 185, and they've got every weapon under the sun, and then they can get D3 flat 3 or a flat 4 in melee or something like that. So I don't think it's as good as Dreadnoughts, but I definitely think it's costed appropriately.
The nice thing is the movement. They're still movement 12, right? So
they can move 12 for 1 CP. If you've got a unit in dense, I can just ignore the -2 to move. So
is that only dense, or is that all movement modifiers?
No. I can ignore the penalty from terrains.
Okay.
If you're in a terrain that when I charge you, so.
Okay.
But I can then put 5 Acolytes in. So when it does eventually die, they can then get onto the objective. And this is actually a big thing around how I play, is I will play around objectives and then shoot things that are not around objectives. Because then if something dies, my Acolytes will get onto objectives, and I can just, keep the momentum going with that. I think it'd be silly to just start hunting with this army anything that's not near an objective. So you've got to play with that in mind. So I was like, I'm definitely going around 3 Rock Grinders. And then I thought, well, bikes. The reason I added bikes in mostly because I painted 5 squads up and a squad of 5 up, and I thought, I want to see them on the table. So how can I make them work? So I thought, how can I make them work? Because bikes now are very viable, very viable. They are very cheap. They're 12 points a model. Toughness 4, -1 to hit at all times. 4 armor save. So I think they're very cheap for just chaff. And that is what they are to me, is they are chaff. However,
they 12 points a model?
12 points a model.
That is dirt cheap.
Yeah, exactly. It's 6 points a wound, essentially. The Wolf Quad is 24 points. That's 6 points a wound. So yeah, it's a 5-man squad is 12 wounds. It comes with 1 demo. So 1 demo charge and 1 mining laser. Let me just check my roster. Is 92 points.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, because what they get now is a 9-inch pre-game move.
Oh.
So so they can go 23 inches turn 1 and essentially screen block you. So so what I'm doing is, especially if I go first, I would definitely be hyper aggressive with my at least 1 squad. Move them 23 inches, road block you. Unless if you've got something like Hive Guard touching a wall, then that's your mistake. I will charge. But I will generally just put them in front of your deployment, roadblock you, pop some strats so I can give exposed to a unit within 6 inches of them that my rock grinders can shoot at and get +1 to wound. And then throw their, because they count as exposed if they're within 6 inches of whatever they shoot. So yeah, they can do some really good stuff. And then when they will die, but they're only 92 points then. 92 points, and they can definitely remove more than 92 points of what they are.
Which, again, we're talking about that whole trading up philosophy that we have nowadays.
Absolutely. This army only works if you trade up. The efficiency only works if you trade up. And so I built this list based on this efficiency. And so, yeah, I thought 92 points for this, just for an early game advantage. If I can get rid of a couple of dreadnoughts that are going to kill, that can shoot my acolytes, I'm happy. If I can get rid of a couple of knights, if I can somehow shoot, I don't know, if I can see Hive Guard, I'm going to shoot Hive Guard and remove them. Yeah, essentially, if I can kill something that will kill my acolytes, or that will kill my rock grinders, I'm in a really good position to create momentum. So that's sort of why I've got them in. They are just an alpha strike unit that just slows down my opponent turn 1 at least. And then originally I had Aberrants, and I thought I really wanted them to work, and they just don't. They sound way better on paper than practicality of using them, because they kind of die and they've only got 2 attacks and they're not core. So I thought actually maybe I should try some shooty support. And I thought, actually, maybe I'm going to try some 3 Ridge Runners. And I thought, well, what can I do for shooting support? I've already got 3 Rock Grinders. They're the best shooting support in the entire codex, if you ask me. I've got my Jackals. I really don't want to paint another 5 Jackal squads, if I'm going to be honest with you, because they're one-time use, and I'm trying to think of what I can add in that is going to survive more than one turn. So I had a couple of games yesterday with Ridge Runners, and I thought, Jesus Christ, they're actually really good now. So originally, Ridge Runners were toughness 5, 8 wounds, 4 up save, and a 6 of feel no pain. Mining lasers are blast still. Their missile launchers were crap, because they were they were essentially like, shooting one crack grenade or 6 little shots. But now they've changed their missile launchers to flat 3 damage, strength 6, -3.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, and it's 3 shots each. So that's 9 shots per guy. And if you give them a instead of the 6 up feel no pain, you can now give them a 6 up invulnerable save and -2 for them to be charged.
Anything that's minus to charge is great on a vehicle. That was
I
built my whole Death Guard list around that premise initially when the first codex came out. So
exactly, and it's really good. With the 9-inch move, a pre-game move, and then a 14-inch move overall, you can really get them wherever you want them to go. Or you can just they can just scuttle around the board and do whatever they want. But for me, flat 3 damage is what I'm building my army around, if you can see.
Do they have the -1 damage as well as the
No,
Rock Runners?
they don't. No.
No,
Unfortunately, they don't. I think that would be too good because they're only 80 points a model.
Okay.
So yeah, they're only 80 points a model. So they're not anywhere near as good as, let's say, Orc Buggies. But they are still really good for what their points are. And they also give me a to the last option if I want to. And my to the last would be 3 Ridge Runners and 2 Acolyte squads. And with the Deep Strike stratagem, going back to the Shadows with the stratagem I mentioned, I can really play around to the last as a very viable option. Because if you kill 2 Ridge Runners, I'm going to scuttle one away 14 inches. I can even advance him for 6 inches. Use a psychic power. Oh, I did not mention this, and I'm going to mention this now. The Magus, there's one stratagem for the Magus. He can cast a Blessing Power, so that's a buff, for 1 CP anywhere to any unit on the board.
Okay.
Yes, so I didn't mention that before, and I think this is one of the best stratagems. So I can sit him 72 inches away. Cast fall back and shoot, fall back and charge, or charge and shoot and advance onto Ridge Runners and move them for 1 extra CP, move them 6 inches. So they're going to go 20 inches, fall back and shoot. And then for 2 CP, they can move another 7 inches once they've shot. So if you kill 2, this last one, he's going to go, 27 inches.
Oh yeah, and you
And
could hide him behind terrain and make sure he's safe.
exactly. I can just keep him safe. And I'm going to score my to the last. With these, to the last is a really good option because of the return to shadows. I lose efficiency because I will delete something and then put them into deep strike, and then they'll probably not really engage until towards the end of the turn. But it gives me 15 points if I play around it properly. So yeah, I was sort of making these combinations in my head. I played it yesterday with Ridge Runners, and honestly, at 8 wounds each, at 6 up invulnerable save, they do at toughness 6 now. They do kind of survive quite a bit. They can shoot in combat. They are not industrial weapons, I'll say that. So they do not ignore the penalty to hit.
Okay.
In combat, but if you give a crossfire marker, then they're going to hit on 4s. Essentially, so yeah, they're just like the last minute sort of addition that I put in that just create a bit of efficiency around hyper efficiency around shooting more. Flat 3 damage is always flat 3 damage. It's strength 6, so I'm wounding knights on 4s. But when you've got 9 shots per guy hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s against knights, flat 3 damage, even if you fail 2, it's 6 damage. Yeah, I mean, if he fails 2 saves, it's still 6 damage, right?
Yeah.
So they killed a keeper on their own yesterday, so I was like, yeah.
So if that's the latest thing you added, is there any other thoughts that what other things did you try that you might, or what other things are you thinking about maybe trying if these don't work out in the end?
Okay. One thing I'm going to add in is I'm going to replace one squad with one squad of drills. This is what a lot of people are pressuring me to try out in the Genestealer Discord. Is they keep saying, "Oh, drills are mathematically better," and the way drills work is. Yeah, so the way drills work is it's strength 8, it's -4, it's 1 damage. 6s to hit are 2 mortal wounds in addition, but they auto wound. So yeah, so you charge in, you hit on 2s, you reroll 1s, and every hit roll is an auto wound. And the idea is to fish for 6s with the reroll 1s and hope that you get maybe 4 6s. That would be that's 8 mortal wounds in addition. So that is really good in the -1 damage meta, really good in the invulnerable save meta. Yeah. But for me, my biggest drawback with this is I don't like RNG. So as you can see, I've only got 2 mining lasers. There's no mining lasers on these because flat D6 damage is just it. I don't want to rely on I really don't want to rely on RNG. I'd rather do less damage and be more consistent. Than do more potential damage, but be more swingy.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. With all of the -1 damage stuff out there, I don't think a lot of people realize, but a D6 weapon is averaging 2.5, which is just garbage. Like, why would you take a 2 point? If I told you, hey, here's an anti-tank weapon that does 2 damage on average, or that does 2 damage every time, you'd be like, no, I'm not using that for anti-tank.
Exactly. It's like I can understand why Games Workshop did not want to go D3 plus 3 for Genestealers because you can just spam it. However, they could have done the Drukhari route and give one of them. So, for example, heavy mining lasers could have been D3 plus 3, and normal mining lasers could have been D6. Yeah. And then you can't really spam it. Although I suppose you could have made it 1 shot, so 1 Ridge Runner, so you could have like a maximum of 12 D3 plus 3, which is still quite a lot, let's be honest. So I can understand why they didn't, but the fact that they didn't is also really hurting the army's efficiency because I did play around with, I have tried one list of 9 Ridge Runners with mining lasers. I have tried my original list of 60 neophytes with 6 mining lasers, 12 mining lasers, sorry, and I'm just constantly rolling 1s and 2s.
Yeah, and that's what happens all the time. That's the reason why I don't ever take anything that has a D6 damage if I can help it. The only thing I take is multi-meltas because the +2 makes up for it.
Melters in Sisters are insanely good though, yes, especially when you've got more than VAR to throw on reroll all wounds and hits.
And you have miracle dice to fix that issue.
Exactly, you have miracle dice to really fix a problem of low damage. So if you get a 6, you're laughing, something's dying. And unfortunately, we don't have that. I'm not going to complain though. I think the Genestealer system is incredible. I really think the army is in a good spot. I'm not sure. I've not played every game possible where I can decide actually where we fit into the meta in my own personal estimations. I really think Drukhari is a big problem. My first game was against Coven's Drukhari. I did my combos that I thought were good into Grotesques, and I like killed one.
Yeah.
And then Grotesque came and killed my Aberrants. I was like, okay, this is good. So I still haven't figured out Covens. I don't think many people have figured out how to beat Covens.
I don't think Covens is the answer, honestly.
No,
Not with the current books out there. Maybe future books might have a fix for that, but
no,
that was a mistake what they did with the Covens.
The fact that -1 damage Coven exists in the game, I keep saying this, I think it should just go. It's just, it has no place in this game for an army that efficient to have -1 damage on top of all their survivability.
There's a reason why Death Guard lost 5-up Feel No Pain when they got multi-wounds, because multi-wounds with 5-up Feel No Pain is insane. The efficiency of it, the mathematics of it is crazy. And then when you stack a -1 damage on top of that, it's just bonkers what you could do.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, actually, there is a really sort of skew list you can do, and I've had one game with it, is Aberrants. You can take 30 Aberrants. You can give them a 5-up for 2 CP per squad. You can give them a 5-up invulnerable save. And with one character, by turn 1, you can give 2 of them a 5-up Feel No Pain.
So it's like poor man's Drukhari Covens.
It is. So this is the problem. It's a poor man's Drukhari Coven because you have to skew into 10-man squad. It's 900 points plus 50 plus 6 CP plus 50 for the ability to do this. It's actually 65 because you have to take the alchemy buff. So it's 965 points to make 90 wounds, toughness 5, -1 damage, 5 plus invulnerable save, 5-up Feel No Pain. But then you have to ask yourself, what am I really giving up? They're not obsec. They only have 2 attacks each. So they're not grotesques with 5 attacks each. Yeah, the grotesques are flat 2 damage. But I'd rather have flat 2 damage at 5 attacks than flat 3 damage at 2. Yeah. Especially when grotesques can reroll all wound rolls for 1 CP. But against some armies, it's really skewed. It's probably really good. But then against things like Scarab Cult Terminators, that is just going to maybe tank that damage, or they're just going to kill outright like 4 Aberrants and then they're obsec on the objective. I don't know. I don't know if it's good. And I don't want to paint 20 more Aberrants, but I think it's maybe something that can pop up in TTS tournaments and just be annoying. Like we've seen the really stupid 170 racks. I think this is sort of skewing in the same sense. Okay. It's not going to do anything to 170 racks though. So let's not pretend that. There is obviously a lot of skew builds that you can make, but I don't think it's a smart choice in this army. But the good news is this army can make a lot of different builds. The internal balance is so incredible. They've done an amazing job. It's probably, outside of Drukhari, is probably the most internally balanced codex I've seen yet. Where the power is though, I'm not, where the strength is in terms of where it fits in the meta, I'm not too sure. But I think it's definitely right now it's around Sisters level in my initial estimations.
It seems like from your description of it, it seems very similar to the way Sisters play.
Yeah,
like the same. Well, at least the way my list plays is like I have a few good shooting units that are there, and then I have really, really strong melee units that can trade and take objectives and stuff like that. You have a bit more mobility than I do, obviously, in my list, but yeah, it seems like it plays very similarly.
Yeah, I think in terms of Sisters, I have more longevity in my shooting, and I think you've probably more better trading with your melee, in the sense that I'm not too sure. I will say this, so I have played Sisters twice, and Sisters aren't a problem for me. Mostly because I play against Sisters so much, I know how they work, that I know how to counter them already. And I have sort of done a 20-0 versus Sisters twice now, which is music to my ears because one of my teammates plays Sisters, and I just like beating him, to be honest with you. So we're going to have a game, and then hopefully I can just like keep him down to earth about it. But I think I think sisters aren't much of a problem. I'm not too sure what is a problem outside of Drukhari right now. A lot of armies like Grey Knights, I have not really had too much of a problem unless there's been really crap terrain on the board. Orcs have been actually pretty sort of all right to deal with because of the 3-up armor save onto my Rock Grinders, 8 wounds on an Achilles with 6-up invulnerable
which
save.
Which kind of orcs have you been playing against?
I've played against the sort of natural buggy spam.
Okay, so you haven't played against the somewhat more recent mass melee MSU style orcs.
I mean, let's be honest. I don't think I'm going to struggle against mass melee MSU because most of them don't really have a save. I mean, Squig buggies do. Not Squig buggies, Squig riders. They have a save, but I mean, Acolytes are going to chew them up. It's flat 3 damage. They have 3 wounds. They die. I have enough attacks to kill an orc. Toughness 5 on like knobs or on what are they called? Mega knobs are probably a problem, but I can trade up really much better. And if I absolutely have to, I'll just engage my Primus and he'll just kill knobs or mega knobs pretty efficiently as well because I win on 2s. Minus 2 AP, but it's still flat 3 damage. I've got a lot of decent shooting. I've got a lot of flat 3 damage shooting. I've got a lot of high proficiency in my shooting, so I really don't think they're a problem, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely happy to play, lose, and then change my estimation. But right now, a lot of armies I don't think are going to give me, that did in 8th, aren't going to give me a problem now, I don't think. Thousand Suns did give me problems in 8th on certain maps, but with flat 3 damage on my Recruiters, if they don't get their 4+ invulnerable save, Might from Beyond on an Acolyte squad is going to kill, I think, 6 to 7. And then I'm going to obviously throw a mass Hypnosis onto 1, so I can give them -1 attack and fight last, which really drives down the hyper efficiency of Scarab Cult Terminators. So, yeah, to a squad of 10 and a squad of 5 is killing outright a 10-man squad. And that's not including all the flat 3 damage shooting I can do. So that arm is not a problem. The problem, I think, is making mistakes. Because, like I say, everything has a 5-up save. Bikes have a 4-up save. Ridge Runners have a 4-up save. They have a 3-up save. But I don't have an invulnerable save apart from the Ridge Runners, the Kellamorph, and the Sanctus. So if I misplay, or if I misjudge the situation and I don't trade efficiently, I'm going to lose the squad outright. I did this with Aberrants. I charged into Blade Guard. I thought, maybe flat 3 damage, I'll kill them. No. And then I killed 1. And then because of their invulnerable saves and their transhuman, and then 5 of them killed 4 Aberrants back. And I was like, okay, this is nice. So...
you were saying before when I mentioned Death Guard, how I know that used to give you a lot
Death
of
Guard
in the past.
So Death Guard, the problem with Death Guard right now is that you can only field a limited number of units.
Yeah.
So I mean, even if you field 3 times 5 Death Shroud, and you've got the what's it called, the Foul Blight spawn, but I used to play Death Guard. I know how to play around the Foul Blight spawn. You've got a 4-up invulnerable save, so I need to wound you 3 times, essentially to kill you, realistically 4 times. But 3 Death Shroud, 10-man squad will kill 3 Death Shroud, and I'm still cheaper than you.
Yeah. Significantly cheaper.
Significantly cheaper. 3 Ridge Runners have 18 shots of Strength 4, so flat 1 damage, so 20 Poxwalkers. I'm probably killing 10 because I get +1 to wound, +1 to hit. With just Ridge Runners, I've got little shots on the Rock Grinders. I've got a heavy, I've got 6 shots, Strength 6, -2 damage, so 3 of them can probably kill 20 Poxwalkers with the Ridge Runners. And then
the melee on those Rock Grinders is terrifying to me, honestly.
I mean, to -1 damage, it's not really that good. But like anything that's not -1, like NDKs, like Dread Knights and Grey Knights, as long as I don't get alphaed, I am going to really destroy their Dread Knights with almost everything. So yeah, as long as there's no -1 damage, I am super efficient with my output. Versus Death Guards, so one thing that I can do, one of my units has a 3d6 charge, pick drop in the lowest. Oh, it's worth to mention, I did not mention this before, and it's huge. Genestealer is now deep strike within 8 inches.
Oh yes, yes, I do. I saw that.
6 inches if they don't charge.
So you can drop in 8 inches. You only have an 8-inch charge on 2 dice, which up
on 3.
odds.
Yeah, exactly. Ups the odds, and then
one.
Exactly, I can make it a 3 dice for 1 unit. So your Plague Burst Crawlers are going to get touched. And so yeah, I'm not as bothered about trying to get to them in combat to touch them. They're not going to kill me. What with some heavy stubbers, -1 to hit in melee, and then you've got an entropy cannon. I'm not really that scared. So Plague Burst Crawlers did become a problem. I don't think they are now, just because of I can take a more MSU approach and my damage has gone up. Contemptors are still an issue, but I can just fire all my flat 3 damage and try and kill Contemptors, which I absolutely will, because I'm going to be wounding them on 2s with my Rock Grinders, 4s with my Achilles. I've got flat 3 damage on 1 squad if I choose to, so you'll be damaged 2. So you've got your 5 up invulnerable save. I'm going to kill a Contemptor or 2 if I really want to, because it's only 9 wins. So I feel for Death Guard, they need some points drop, because even I am not scared of them anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, Oh, I know what question I had for you.
Yeah.
So we've seen previews of the secondary changes and mission changes. Do you think this list survives into those changes?
Yes. So the secondary. So what changes for secondaries for me is Rod, which becomes R&D, because we obviously have to change the name every single time.
Yes.
So the new yeah, of course it is. I mean, we've got to have an identity every time, haven't we? So the new R&D.
We know what edition we were playing. If Rod and R&D and Display
Strangle and and to the last
names, we'd be all lost. All of us would be chaos.
Exactly. You can't buy a new book if they've got the same names, can you? So they've got to change it. So R&D doesn't change a thing for me, because I have my 5-man squads. I've built these in as redundancy because I know R&D is on its way. And 5-man squads. One's got lying in wait, so it can deep strike within just outside of 3 inches to get my rod. I've got another one that I either start on the board, or I will start it in a rock grinder. It can get me rods, R&D. Sorry, so I'm not too bothered about that. I don't know if I'm not seeing if Stranglehold's changing. If there's been no information, changed. I don't think it will.
No, Stranglehold I don't think it's changed. I think Engage does, though, because the certain numbers of the unit has certain model count matters now.
Yeah, it's 3 or more, I think.
Yeah.
So for Engage, I rarely take Engage. The only time I take Engage is, for example, if I'm against mini knights, I'm not taking Strangle, because if I don't kill them, if I don't kill a knight, then I don't get the objective, because they will kill me back, or they'll kill like 8 models. So I'll never get Strangle. I don't take Strangle against things like Skyrockled Terminators, because they're a 10-man obsec. I'm never going to get that. Necrons, I rarely take Strangle against Necrons unless it's something that I know I can just delete a squad off an objective. For example, if they're taking, I don't know, like 20 Lich Guard, I'm never taking Strangle, because I'm never killing that many models, or if they've got like full warrior spawn. But other than that, I take Strangle because it benefits me, because I want to be on objectives as well, of course. So not only do I get 3 points if I'm on an objective, I also deny my opponent primary points. So it makes sense to take it, as long as I feel like I am able to trade. So I rarely take Engage. But then look at my army. I've got so much deep strike if I need it. I am so quick with so many units that I've got so many like 5-man metas and 5-man acolytes. I can just get Engaged without a problem.
Okay. Do you think you're particularly vulnerable to grind?
All right, so this is So in 8th edition, I was vulnerable to grind. In 9th edition, that has not changed. In 8th edition, you're going to get grind no matter what because you kind of have to spam units anyway. Unless somebody ran 9 Ridge Runners, but again, it's just not my flavor of gameplay, so I don't ever run that. So I was always losing grind to some units. Like Knights, for example, they're now heavy in the meta. They always grind them down. And it forced a different playstyle for me to try and reduce their limitations and what they can score with grind. So now it's the same thing. However, it is worth mentioning, I also do play on WTC because this country plays WTC. We're very focused on that. So there is a lot of terrain changes that would happen. So I actively play most of my units on the board. The benefit of 5-man squads is in a small L, I can hide them. In a big L, I can hide them. And I can be more receptive to what my opponent does. On a Games Workshop open table, I've been playing on them on TTS tournaments now. Yes, I am more susceptible to grind, but I would overlay this by the fact that I'd probably put more units in Deep Strike. Or I would just abuse the fact that they've got a really big area terrain that you can, if you're not in the terrain, you can't be shot through the terrain. So yeah, I am. Yeah, so all in all, I am susceptible to grind, of course, but this is the world you live in, right? It's like Knights are susceptible to bring it down. It's just there's not much you can do about it.
I was just curious, looking if that was one of the ones that people. I'm thinking of like what would we do to counteract this list if we were gonna play against it?
Okay,
so,
if you're gonna play against this, AP2.
AP2
is just honestly spam AP2 on anything that you put because that's 90% of my army will die to AP2, and no prisoners. I think you're going to see a lot of armies that are taking, especially with the changes to no prisoners. I'm going to give up a lot of points. I think it's after 50 it's 2 points, and then after something it's 3 points or something like that per wound.
I don't remember. I'd have to look it up again. So,
but right now I've got 10.5 no prisoners. So if it goes up to like 12, 13,
yeah,
you're almost guaranteed
that. Good pick, yeah. I assume a lot of your games end up where you've completely lost your entire army, your opponent's completely lost his army, and then you just win because you held more points for longer.
Strangely, actually, that when I first started playing, that was the case. However, I've got into a role now where I've taught myself I really rarely make that many mistakes because I can't afford to, that I don't lose that many units anymore. Like in my last games, all my characters have survived. My Ridge Runners have survived. I've got like 2 Metamorph squads, weirdly, on the board. A 10-man squad somewhere, a couple of 5-man squads, and maybe 1 or 2 Rock Grinders alive. Especially in terms where I've gone first and I'm able to remove anything that can kill. I have to prioritize 1. I either remove anything that can kill my Rock Grinders and Ridge Runners, or anything that can kill my Acolytes. And it entirely depends on what the army is and what the board is, that I'll obviously assess and decide which one I'm going to kill turn 1. Which then leads me towards the end of the game. Actually, I'm pretty well on points. It might change when I start going to tournaments and I'm again against Poland's best players, and they can really actually force mistakes on me because they're better players and they've got stronger, tougher armies. But actually, right now, I feel like I'm in a good position where I don't get tabled.
Okay.
Even towards the end of 8th, I didn't get tabled apart from maybe 2 games in tournaments. So I just tend to lose on primary. Sometimes that's the problem. Primary is still a big, big issue because we only have OBSEC on 2 units.
Yeah.
Unless you include Brood Brothers, but no one really should. They should be dead to everybody by now.
Well, you got a whole new codex coming. You never know what's going to happen with that.
Well, actually, quickly on this, a lot of people are saying that the Brood Brother change is a massive nerf, and it is right now. But because we don't have any units in the codex, but that's amazing because it now opens you up to whatever overpowered broken stuff that comes in the new codex with guard.
Exactly.
You can now include. So I think people need to be a little bit less negative and start thinking about the future, because I think this edition is going to go on longer than 8th or any other edition, simply because of we still haven't got all the codexes out, and this is year year 3, isn't it?
Even if the edition switches, it's not like you're getting a new codex in 3 years. So
exactly. Our codex can stand the test of time right now. So yeah, when Guard comes around and they get like really strong Lehman Russes, you're going to be happy you can take those tank commanders, and rather than the ones that we've got in the codex. So I think loss aversion is such a huge, strong like feeling for humans in general, that they really look at what they lost rather than what they've gained. And in this codex, they have gained so much good stuff. We've lost some really good stuff, but they've gained way more good stuff. The only problem is, again, holding primary. And it's not an issue entirely, because if you are good with the army, you can create situations where your opponent cannot get to the objectives, or they have to shoot. Like, for example, if I've got 5 Acolytes on an objective, as I can spend 2 CP. If you're not within 12 inches, you cannot shoot them. So the question is, what do? Do you shoot my rock grinders? Do you come for my rock grinders and my jackals that are and my ridge runners that are forcing you to limited movement? Do you go for my 10-man acolyte squads, or do you go for my 5 acolytes on a primary? The whole point of this MSU approach is you've now got choices that if you make the wrong choice, I am going to punish you with hyper efficiency melee and shooting. But if you make the right choice, you're going to punish my misplays for positioning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So. Well, great. What's the next event that you're going to be able to play in that you're actually going to get to use this book in?
It's a good question, actually, because we've got a big event this weekend. I think 60 players or 70 players, but they won't let me use the codex. So I'm having to take my
blasphemy right there.
It is, actually, because I even said to him, I said, look, it's a week before the tournament. Here's the codex. Please let me play it, because I'm the only Genestealer player going to this tournament. It would be fun for everybody if we can see how far I can push this book. And then it's a good for the Polish team as well, because all the players are going to be there, so we can establish sort of maybe where this codex lies. And obviously they said no, so I was like, okay. So then there's a tournament in the start of February I think I'm going to go to, but it's only, I think, a 28-man tournament, so it's not too big. But the good news is I am nowhere near the Polish team tournament player skills, but I do think I'm in a good position to win, because they are the best players in the world, absolute shadow of a doubt. I would love to see them go to the US and play against the likes of John Lennon, Nick Nanavati and stuff, because they are some of the best players I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm lucky because I've learned a lot from playing with these, and I've managed to go from losing every game to winning most games just by learning and from them. But with this codex, that was a limitation in 8th, is a player skill compared to like Skark or Typhus, Duda playing the best armies, to now being able to, I think, so I had the worst army and my player skill also limited it, but now I can go. I've got a really good codex. I think I can actually start winning tournaments with. Even against the likes of, like, maybe if someone like Typhus is playing Drukhari and we pair, I'm not going to win that, because it's A, he's a better player, and B, the army is just too efficient. But if I go against Duda or Skark with Knights and I get a good Alpha Strike, I think I'm in a good position, honestly, because I've got a lot of potential with this army to push it further. Or if I play against other players on my skill, I think I can definitely utilize this army, so I can win tournaments. I feel confident that I can really get some successes next year, so I'm really excited. Yeah, so I'm going to be going to the UK as well to do tournaments there.
Well, great, and hopefully if you do good at some of these tournaments, you'll give us a little tournament recap write up for TAC.
Always, of course. I need to do more stuff at TAC, actually. I toaster some articles which I've almost finished. I just this codex kind of took my time now. So
I 13 games in what, 5 days, 3 days?
Yeah, 3 days. 3 days.
Yeah, that games average what, 2.5 to 3 hours.
I'm averaging about 2 hours a game. I'm managing to play. Yeah, I play games. I can make decisions pretty quickly. So in a lot of games, I play really fast. The problem I have is when my opponent takes like 3-4 hours for a turn. I'm like, oh Jesus, just stop.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
Well, we
thing
have
is I
these
wanted
wonderful
to
things
go
called
on.
chess clocks.
Yeah.
Are they common in the
So
Polish scene?
yes. Oh, yeah. Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah. Very. I will say this about playing in Poland. It's an amazing experience, and anyone in Europe or even the US, if you get a chance, I really suggest coming to a tournament because I think it's a really good place to test your skill. The problem with Polish tournaments is we only have like one or two a month, so all the best players always go to them. So it's not like the US where, like, if John Lennon and Nick Nanavati go to one tournament, they're not at another tournament. And there's maybe 10, 20 tournaments at one go. Whereas here, all the best players always go to them, so you're always challenged forever. And I think that's really good for the.
So
Sorry, go on.
every tournament is like a top bracket LVO for you guys.
Yeah, literally every big 50 plus player, 60 plus player tournament is an LVO. You are always going to have the best players there. RTT is a little bit different, but even in Warsaw, we have some of the best players in Poland living in Warsaw. So they come to 15, 16, 18 man RTTs as well. So you're always challenged. And this is why I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the Polish meta because we don't use ITC, we don't use BCP, so we're not discovered. But yeah, I forgot what the question was. But essentially, yeah, it's really good to play in here, and yeah, I forgot what we were talking about.
It's fine. All right. Well, great. Hopefully, you and I maybe can get a game soon. I can stream it on Twitch, and we can I'll play against this new codex. It seems really interesting.
Yeah, I think we should because I think it's going to be important for you to figure out how the army works because you're going to come against it in the US quite a bit. I think.
Yeah. Well, I have, like I said, I have Tyler Bortel is one of my locals that I've played against, and he's a Genestealer cult and Tyranid diehard fan. So I've played against
Oh,
his stuff a
nice,
lot. So
nice. That's good then. So you'll get some good practice.
yeah, but definitely want to play against you again. We've only had one game against each other, so.
Yes, and it was a very close game.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And Danny, thank you for joining us. And I thought this was going to be about an hour's talk. We did 2 hours. So.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, no. It's great. A lot of good information. So.
Awesome. Well, you have a great day and everybody else, and I will catch you later.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
See ya.